Hello, today we're going to go over, Mike Morrison, Copilot Partner Solutions Specialist. I also cover Power Platform, et cetera, et cetera. Today, Azure AI. Today we're going to talk about Copilot Cowork because it's day one and everything just turned on, or most things turned on. So I'm just going to go over some basic setup on this stuff and kind of the things to be careful of and to look out for. And so I was talking to someone that was at the European Power Platform Community Conference in Copenhagen earlier today. And he asked me, well, why am I doing Copilot, right? And so I was like, what? Because he's used to me for doing a lot of stuff in Copilot Studio and Power Apps, Power Automate. And I'm kind of like focusing on the underlying Copilot Cowork, Copilot Studio, and Microsoft Scout. Pretty much what used to be called Autopilot. But essentially, from Copilot, it's the thing where you can ask it questions, it gives you answers. Copilot Cowork is a way to do things like that, but also delegate stuff to Copilot to work for you and pull in more stuff. And it's actually a great delegation engine, so it can run things while you're out. You can schedule it to do all kinds of different things, and there's a plethora of them. I won't go into it. And Copilot Studio, which is where I've had a lot of focus on, is the builder. So with Copilot Studio, we can build things and share it for all kinds of other users in our intra-tenant. It doesn't necessarily require M365 licensing like Power Apps or Power Automate would. We can license those to other users too without the M365 licensing. But Copilot Studio is really good for more intense work for a larger organization, whereas Copilot is a personal assistant. It's doing things for you. And then Copilot Cowork is also more of a personal focused. And with Cowork, we can share agents that we create to other users, and they can set it up and run in their environment for them and have access to the things that it's been granted access to, mostly in the M365 space with the Work IQ, but we can bridge it to other things as well. Copilot Studio is made for, things like support, customer support agents, help desk bots. I've seen a lot of HR bots, all these things where an organization wants to control the execution and also the cost of it. And I sort of focus on cost a lot, right? Cost and billing in Copilot Studio. I've done a lot of content on LinkedIn and some stuff on YouTube I posted up specifically about where our cost metrics come from, how to optimize that, and how to avoid paying more than you really need to do. And there's a whole lot of discussions to be had under each of these verticals. And then we branch outside of the Copilot space. And then we start talking about Azure, Microsoft Foundry, Azure Cognitive Services. I've done a lot of work in there as well. And then those have things like, you can make an agent across any of these that does like really, really cool stuff. But, what is it costing you, right? And is there a value add in that? And that's kind of my focus, but I'm just kind of giving that out because someone asked me this morning, why am I doing Copilot Cowork? I'm kind of known for other stuff. And it's like, well, because it's a range of different tools, and all of them are Microsoft focused, and we can marry them into other AI tools as well with the Work IQ, with Copilot Cowork and Copilot and the M365 admin thing now being branched out so that people can see that, right? And then access those and tap into the Work IQ, the ontology layer that Microsoft laid over the M365 REST API, sort of, so that a user can use things like Claude on the desktop tied into the work IQ, et cetera, et cetera. Doing that work is going to require them to at least have a billing mechanism set up for Cowork to access the IQ, and we're going to get into that. And one of the things is we're always focusing on, how much of our battery is left, or how much is, how far can I go with what's this going to cost me, and I need to be able to focus on that, right? So I'm going to focus mostly today on the Copilot Cowork setup, and then some of the controls you can put in place to ensure that you're getting, the value out of the tools that you have, whatever tool it is, but in this case, Cowork, but also you understand that, you're optimizing the tool to not be excessive as far as cost consumption. So from the administrative point of view, and we'll get into that in a second, the administrator only has a view on the Cowork Copilot credits being consumed. The users, and you need to talk to your users who are creating stuff with Cowork or creating stuff with anything else that's consuming credits. We need to make sure they're optimized, and there's a lot of people that talk about optimizing for that, and of course it's one of my focuses. And I put a LinkedIn post, and I'll post the link to this up here, and it's talking about the Copilot credits and how much they cost. It's a penny per credit for Azure, but it's 20% less for that when you buy the pre-purchase plans for Copilot credits, or you can buy the commit units, right? So 300,000, lowest level is 300,000 Copilot credits pre-purchase for the year. They expire at the end of the year. So like the pre-purchase ones that are the monthly units are the ones that are built for the year. We want to make sure that you're going to use them. And so before for 100% sure, you need to look at the admin portal, and then you need to set up a pay-as-you-go for the Copilot Studio. And that will then allow you to start billing before you make the decision on what type of licensing you're going to commit to on a monthly or yearly basis. And so it all starts in the M365 dashboard. And what was I going to do? I was going to show my Copilot credit. So I hit my monthly limit, which is good, because I set a policy for it, right? So this user, I can't run any more Cowork. Before starting this, I set the limits, and I'll show you that in a minute. So I'm done with Cowork for the month. I had used 131 credits up until I set that limit, and I set it for 132. And the minute it went over, I'm getting that. I'm done for the month, right? So now this is an Azure billing. It's not the pre-purchase credit billing, because I don't have any of those in my tenant. I'm just trying to give everyone an idea of what this is going to surface to for the users, and what kind of controls the administrators have as far as limiting expenses that the company's going to have to pay for one way or the other, either through pre-purchase Copilot credits or billing to Azure. And I'm hoping I can go back in and change my limit, which I've done before this, and then I can start heading down the road doing more Copilot Cowork stuff. So my chat still works, so that's not a problem. One of the things I noticed was in the Cowork, when we go into here, we look, I want to change to black menu. This is just an aside. I don't like the white menu for some reason or another. Here I can go into settings, but it's only available in chat, and I can set it to dark mode and hit that. And then I come back to Cowork, but I don't have the settings, right? So I have to change the settings in chat. This is just a different, sort of off topic, but it's kind of, use my system settings. It's kind of interesting that that's not there yet in Cowork, and I thought it would be, but it's not. And I came in dark, and I like to do white for these things. So Breaking into it, day one, Copilot credits, Cowork, requiring the credits to be used. And we'll come into Copilot and we'll start with the overview. And it's going to start showing me metrics, which I didn't have yesterday. So I now can see my active Copilot users, Copilot chat and regular Copilot. I can see my adoption score, the number of users in my organization that have been running Copilot stuff. I've got one user account. I've got my break glass account. I've got another admin account for just administrating this stuff. And I think I got one more as a test account that I haven't set up yet. So that account's not live yet, hasn't done anything. So here we have a bunch of, a bunch of the views, responses, etc. Different things to give users the learning agent so they can start to learn how to use Cowork. All these things we can push out to the users through here. And we want to make sure we set the policy to protect the data in the 365 Copilot. So we don't want the data leakage to go on. We want to look for compliance and stuff. Again, this all just came on this morning. Haven't even touched the purview yet on that. So there's a bunch of work I have to do. I can see my usage. So it's combining Copilot users and Copilot chat for a total, even though it's one account. So with that, and I look at my health of the system, see if there's any updates, see anything else in there. It's a lot. Again, I'm just trying to do fast overview on this, and then we go into Cowork. And I see I have one active user. In Cowork, if a user doesn't have Cowork and they go to here, towards the bottom here below where this red little floating dot is, they'll see a little gray button bar to click on, and it'll ask to be added to use Cowork, and then that'll surface in the admin portal here where users are asking for it, right? So that would be the pending request for Cowork. And then we can go here, we can just, add them to a policy or create a new policy. In this case, I have a policy that I created yesterday. And then a lot of these dashboards weren't visible then. So I'm just kind of like showing the what we have now compared to what's going on. If I look at billing, I've got 131 credits to date so far. That's today. It wasn't pulling this stuff in yesterday. So we'll go back to Cowork. We'll go back to this one here. I can look at my usage. I want to kind of go through these in a top-down kind of way. I can see my users. I can see the delta and changes and stuff. And I see the different users. And right now, this is one thing I noticed, is it doesn't have the display name for the user. It shows the user ID. And if I export it, it's essentially the same table space that comes out. So it's going to be all your users. You can bring out an Excel file that shows all your users and the tasks they did, the scheduled tasks they did, last activity date. And hopefully at one time it'll actually show me a display name so I know I can just call that person rather than try to look up their user ID and triangulate from there to find out who that user is to ask them some questions about, how much usage they're doing or what have you. The connectors have been for a while, so we can create new connectors and connect them to Copilot, et cetera, et cetera. Prompts, this is a new one for me, so we can now create prompts and then push those out so users have, when they log in, they can get a prompt that shows them like, hey, use this prompt for whatever. So we go into settings. And one of the things that we want to do is we want to look here when you're setting up the Cowork. You want to turn a number of these things on. But specifically, we want to look at the AI experiences enabled by usage-based billing. So that needs to be turned on. So that needs to be there for the Cowork to start working. And then once we have that turned on, then we can go into cost management. So I have, and there's a nice overview I get to see, like, how many credits used by what particular application. Right now, there's only 2. There's more coming for this, but it's the Cowork and it's the Work IQ billing. So, like I mentioned before, if you're connecting to external third-party AI tools like a Claude, that's going to tap into Work IQ and get some idea of like what kind of things the person running that personal AI is working with. Who are the people I'm emailing with, who are the people I'm sending Teams messages with. These third-party tools can use Work IQ to also look at the ontology layer, the understanding of where all the things you're doing and who are the people you're talking to and how you're working with them. All of that stuff stored in Work IQ, and then that would surface there if I had that set up. And again, fresh new tenant. I'm going to set it up. So when we go to configure, we go into configuration now from here, and I have a policy in place, and in that policy I can set different things. So I can change the name, right? I can see my users. I can add I can limit it just to specific groups, specific users. So if a person needs to have their own single policy, and then they're responsible as far as a cost metric to pay for all of that usage, then we'll have that soon. And there's good use cases for that. Like you may have a very, very large organization, but only 5 or 6 people that are going to run Cowork because the other workers are doing stuff that aren't necessarily IT bound, right? They're working on factory floors, or they're out in the field servicing equipment, what have you, right? So with that, you can say, okay, these 3 people get their own billing, and then I'm going to charge back their individual group or them specifically, so that they know to have that money come out of their budget. But right now, all users are specific groups. I wouldn't recommend all users. In this case, this was set up because I was hammering this yesterday, and it was being spotty for me, and I lost Cowork for a minute, and then I logged out for half an hour, and I logged back in, and it was back on. So, deleted policies, etc. So we want to definitely set that. We want to set up Cowork, and then personal, decision at the business level is whether you're going to allow Work IQ to be surfaced to third-party apps, right? So different discussion. Call me, send me a Teams message and stuff if you want to kind of know some more about that. And then there's new agents and services coming. I have no idea what those possibly are, but I enable them anyways. So that's a decision you should make. Do I want to not have that? We can turn it off, and I can turn that off. And I say, we're just going to talk about Cowork because the organization has to pay for these things, and they're paying for the pre-purchase credits, or they're paying as a pay-as-you-go through Azure. And I don't want to turn on anything else that I'm not sure what the cost implications are going to be. So your decision on that. I turn them on because I'm kind of trying to push the envelope, and I want to be able to do whatever I can when I can, and I'm personally responsible for all the billing on this tenant space. And then we can set the credit limits, etc. And I'm going to actually walk through creating a new policy. I'm going to add a spending policy, and I'm going to give it a name. One note is that the name needs to be at least 10 characters in length. And I'll give it a descriptive name. I'll say core policy. I'm going to do to specific groups this time instead of all users. And then I'm going to look at North America PSS, Product Solutions Specialist Team. I've got 3 members in there. And I'll say next. And I'm going to limit the monthly spending, right? So when you buy Copilot credits, you could buy Copilot credits on the P3 plans. That's where they buy a year in advance. And remember, they expire at the end of the year. But we may want to throttle that. We may want to do something else, whatever. Again, we have to look at that. And in the admin center, we can see, like I showed before, this one user account is the only one I've got, already used 131 credits today. We want to keep an eye on that. We're going to keep an eye on that for at least a month. And we're going to set up, maybe buy some Copilot credits in advance and set that up. If we don't know, that's fine. We're going to pay a penny per credit and we're going to bill it to Azure. And then we're going to be looking at that closely. And at any time we say, okay, well, there's a consistent daily spend of X. How many yearly credits, monthly credits is that? Which Copilot credits, pre-purchase credits should I get? They're going to aggregate together to show a whole month or a whole year. And then we'll go purchase those. But we'll leave the Azure billing in place so that it's a fallback. And the backend system at Microsoft, like with Copilot Studio, will pull the pre-purchase credits first. They cost you less money. And then when they're totally consumed, it'll start billing to the Azure. Haven't gone through that yet. Again, day one. So I'm going to set, set my monthly spending limit to 300 because I know I'm at 130 today. And then I'm going to set it for individual users. Now, this is for the group of users, and it's a finite number for each group. So if I wanted to have a fair distribution for 3 users, I would set it for 100. So once each user, there's 3 users in this group, each of them have used 100, they use their fair share, even distribution of 300 units, 100 units each. That's what I'm setting for. I don't have to do that. But then we might have a problem where someone's consuming way more than someone else. And this is all new, so we just have to kind of play around and watch that and keep an eye on that. And then we're going to set triggers so when the credits either start approaching a certain amount, and I don't know what the definition of that is. Approaching, is it getting 75% of the target, or is it getting to let's set it for 140 because I know I'm at 131, or is it getting 10% away from the target? I don't know. So I'm just going to go for now. I'm going to say when they actually hit 140 out of the total, I want to be notified, right? And we can add different people on this account. Or the notification list. Again, now we're going through, like I showed before, we can do Cowork. I can turn off Work IQ. I don't want to pre-stage some stuff because I don't know how much it's going to cost me to run that. And I don't want some new process that I'm not familiar with as far as administrator of the tenant to automatically start charging me a whole bunch of money unless I talk to those users and I understand whatever this new agent or service is that they have that's come available is going to provide them. So I understand that the implications of making that available, and then I can come back in and turn it on. So we don't want to maybe best policies is don't turn some of this stuff on unless people specifically ask for it, and then they give a cost justification to the administration to say, we need this and here's why. And then we understand we have a billing policy for them. So that particular user group is going to get charged for it. So I click next, and then I have a ability to use pay-as-you-go. So I can use pay-as-you-go, and it's going to look at my different subscriptions. I have a Microsoft Azure tied to my Visa credit card. I don't want to use that. I'm going to use the Arrow subscription that I got to pay for that stuff as pay-as-you-go. That way it's not hitting my credit card. You can put in your credit card if you want, but for work and stuff. So this just has Copilot Cowork, right? So I have it all set there. Came to the billing method. Oh, next. Sorry, jumps back. I've got it just enabled for Copilot Cowork. Nothing else, none of the work IQ stuff, none of the possible new things that are coming. They're kind of exciting because we don't know what they are and we don't know what's going to happen, what those tools are possibly going to provide. So they're leaving it open, but we don't necessarily want to commit to spending to something that we have no idea what it's going to do or what the cost implications are going to be. Okay, so that's been set up. It's done. I'm going to delete it because I don't want to complicate my life and have that policy sitting there in conjunction with my all users policy that I'm currently using for my testing and stuff, right? And so I set the monthly spending limit. Maybe I'll just turn that off. And I'm just going to turn that spending limit off because I did get the trigger for 131 credits, and it said I used too many. So I'm just going to set it so that I get an alert when 400 credits are used in the month. Again, 400 credits is $4, right? So the credits under pay-as-you-go, a penny per credit. So when I get a $4 limit, I'm going to get a notification, change that. And that is a wrap for the overview. Like I said, I'll be posting this up on LinkedIn. You can hit me up there. If you're an Arrow customer, call your sales rep. We can get time to talk and go through some of this stuff and walk you through it if you need help. Thank you all so much.